Alright, how's it going, everyone? This is day 4 of Nightshades. So, let's get into it. This is Making a Difference. That's the name of the section. I'm not trying to neurolinguistically program you. Although I hope it is making a difference. Okay. People do many amazing things. People do many amazing things. Just as they build and maintain their personalities and the glamours that constitute their reality, they can create paradoxical situations, impossible thoughts, and dream gates that take them out of their sorry little dream of everyday reality. People give shape to the incomprehensible. They create gods and spirits who manifest their ideals. People give shape to gods, and gods give ideals to people. And they create demons. Whenever some great force and sentience cannot find a suitable place in the world dream, it becomes demonic. You can attempt to banish demons, but it is more beneficial to integrate them and to give them something useful to do. Which raises a very powerful point. Excuse me, my nose itches for some reason. Those of you that feel like you've been practicing magic for a long time and are either stagnating, or you feel like you're not making, like you're plateauing, or you feel like you're losing steam even, you might be banishing too much. And maybe even want to consider not banishing negativity at all. That's one thing that I tend to avoid myself, is the banishing, as my wind chimes start ringing like crazy. The banishing of just negativity, blanket negativity, is not a good practice, in my opinion or experience, to do regularly. In my experience, it's much better to banish harmful energy or harmful essence or harmful influence. Negativity is not always a bad thing. Negativity is a door. Okay? So if you feel like you're stagnating, or if you feel like you're regressing, perhaps try banishing harmful energy instead of negative energy, and re-examine your cosmogony to see if there's any room for Sleeping Beauty. Who didn't they invite? The chaotic part of nature. They didn't invite her, and there was a consequence. So make sure there's room in your circle for chaos. Just make sure it's a degree to which you can handle. Moving on. Sometimes a god is reborn as a human, and after death, the human is re-deified. But gods do not necessarily need a human shape. Animals can be divine, and gods can appear as animals. Or they can be mountains, rivers, cities, or, on a smaller scale, even things. Old objects acquire spirits. Trees are inhabited by spirits, or left of them. Love that. Life is a mind-blowing phantasmagoria of metamorphosing. I would maybe say metamorphosizing, but that's probably not correct either. Metamorphosing consciousness, delighting in all forms. Like water, it goes around and around. Its center is one vast voidness, one consciousness that delights in being, all by virtue of being nothing. There's that one saying, existence is a circle whose center is nowhere and whose circumference is everywhere, or something like that. Don't take my word for it. Consciousness that delights in being all by virtue of being nothing. Don't take my word for it. Oh, one consciousness that delights in being all by virtue of being nothing. A field guide to the night side. When modern occultists and magicians get a glimpse of the abyss or the night side, They usually encounter, first of all, fear, terror, loathing, disgust, and similar fun experiences. Magicians and Gothics are often wildly romantic and approve of the terrifying in aesthetic forms. Maybe they can call it demonic, evil, qliphothic, or vampiric. Maybe they sense the ancient ones or the great old ones that Lovecraft described so vividly. All of this is quite typical. Some make this experience the source of magical power. Hint, hint. A sorcerer may gain power by scaring himself and others and use his fear energy to bolster his ego. A witch may create a darksome mystique with scare energy that gives her spells an extra kick. For self-explorers, the initial dose of fear energy may be just the thing to kick open the gates of the unknown and make the ancient ones manifest. A painter may find access to these strata and paint magnificent disgust and rot for the rest of his life. That is to say, he's painting magnificent disgust and rot for the rest of his life. Not that he will rot for the rest of his life, but perhaps. A poet may wallow in transgression. A dark wave band celebrate perdition, gloom, self-pity, and despair, or scream their heads off till the fans are deaf. All of this reflects certain aspects of the night side, and all of it is limited and narrowly confined. The term night side misleads. Most of the night side is not dark at all. Most of it does not involve crypts, caverns, ruins, and misty cemeteries. Personally, I was surprised to learn so. I love the dark, frequently sit in darkness, enjoy forest walks at night, and the sensation when my periphery dissolves into velvet black euphoria. It turned out to be only a minute part of the program. You and I may delight in some darksome romance and drama, but how about facing the everyday madness you can see on every street? How many of us ignore poverty, child abuse, mind-numbing school systems, war, starvation, reduced expectations, and so on? How can anyone pass a homeless person on the street, a weeping child, a hungry face, without feeling personally responsible in some way? How far does our self-definition extend? Does it include junkies, anoretics, and people whose brains were destroyed by neuroleptics? Sure, such horrors are normal and we are used to them. Nor are they very appealing. The big bad lady who mutters to herself as she explores the treasures of the garbage bins is not as classy as a smartly dressed nymphomaniac vampire girl. Well said. But she is definitely part of the night side that is consensually repressed by our society, and therefore a portal, and this can be used astrally as well. Your guides don't always have to be winged bat people. They can be a crazy homeless person digging through the fucking garbage, and maybe at the bottom of that dumpster is a fucking hole that takes you to Neverland. Alright, moving on. Okay, and what of the things that go beyond this? There is a horror that comes from death and morbidity, but frankly, the beautiful, the sublime, and the transcendental can be just as terrifying. Sheer joy can drain vitality. Absolute ecstasy can waste a life away. Every activity, when done excessively, becomes potentially destructive. Great beauty is as upsetting as great ugliness. But just to look into the mirror. Just look into the mirror, will you? What about the horrors of love, of joy, of passion, and rapture? How about the cravings that haunt people's lives? Some people become addicted to food and drink, to celebration and having a good time. Others become addicted to danger, excitement, art, sex, or self-sacrifice. The term addiction is used on purpose. Each of these activities, just like compulsive gambling, stealing, crime, fasting, exercise, or the abuse of alcohol, tobacco, heroin, cocaine, hashish, opium, amphetamines, etc., involve a dopamine release with the brain. Sure, each of these activities and chemical substances show marked differences. But when we look at the dopamine level, man, this is good. But when we look at the dopamine level, we observe that some increase its output while others slow the dopamine reabsorption by blocking the receptors at the synapses. And it also raises an interesting point too, that the intellect defines marked differences and degrees in these substances, but the neurophysiology perhaps doesn't. This is very, very important to distinguish. This has relevance on many, many layers for those with ears to hear. Okay. In each case, the brain enjoys an overdose. In some people, and thanks to some activities or drugs, the overdose is strong or long enduring. In others, it is relatively minor. Methamphetamines top the bill. They can raise the dopamine level up to 900% of the normal level in some people, and it has a citation to Milkman and Sunderworth, 2010. Such kicks come at a price. Body habituates and lesser stimuli won't be registered. Body habituates and lesser stimuli won't be registered. When you are addicted to cocaine, the natural dopamine release you get from hugging your partner or kid will hardly be noticed. Tolerance. All of this is highly individual, as receptivity, release, sensitivity, and behavior patterns vary considerably. Nevertheless, where it comes to addiction, we can rely on dopamine to make people compulsive. The substance stimulates the so-called pleasure centers of the brain. It makes us interested, awake, cheerful, excited, possibly euphoric, and very much alive. It's the reward chemical. It's how you tell your memory and your biology, or it's how your memory and your biology tells you that what you're doing is good for your existence, which is one reason the overuse of drugs completely spins the needle on your compass, because you have no idea what's good for you anymore. Well, that's an extreme case. Anyway, if you're acting that way, you have no idea what's good for you. Anyway, moving on. Lack of dopamine can result in depression, anxiety, worry, frustration, aggression, and amplify self-abuse or suicidal tendencies. Dopamine is the very substance around which most of human culture revolves. Do you get a kick from art, from music, dancing, racing, refined cuisine, sex, risk sports, gambling, and so on? You can be sure dopamine is involved. When it becomes addictive and people transgress the normal, their awareness shifts beyond consensual reality to some part of the night side. The result may feel horrible or wonderful. It can inspire art, fun, excitement, rapture, noble deeds, idiocy, or total destructivity. Addictive pleasure seeking, the pursuit of happiness, is a formidable ancient one. Give it a name like Cthulhu, Yog-Sothoth, or whatever. You can pronounce those names however you want. If you want to say Cthulhu, you can say Cthulhu. Soon enough, it can function like any deity, spirit, demon, or totem. The ancient ones. Many early religions personified strong forces. The Vedic Indians, roughly 1200 BCE, are a prime example. Their ecstatic, visionary, soma-drugged seers deified any strong phenomena, entity, or experience. Understandably so. A river, a mountain, fire and planets, love and lust, war and peace, healing plants, trees, words, chants, and rituals. whatever it may be, as long as it is strong. It is a deity. So perhaps strong here means defined. In modern magic, a similar trend is observable. Look at the Cthulhu cultists. The ingredients are simple. We have a highly gifted but neurotic New England writer, H.P. Lovecraft, who made a meager living selling short horror stories to cheap magazines and cultural and historic essays to more established publications. The man was shy, scared of women, scared of foreigners, scared of everything that threatened to upset his narrow little world, and given to extreme nightmares of magnificent and voluptuous grandeur. Lovecraft, a rational and sober materialist by day, dreamed of elder races, forgotten cults, and horrible chaotic beings of the primal days before the bright gods of reason and political correctness established law and order. He was simply brilliant at it. The outcome, I'm not going to digress. He was simply brilliant at it. The outcome of his nightmares is a range of beautifully written short stories. Lovecraft couldn't invent real characters, couldn't handle complicated plots, and totally failed at the task of describing women. The Curious Case of Charles Dexter Ward, I think that's what it's called. That was a pretty original thing, but I mean, maybe all it was an amalgam of other things. Anyway. However, he was an absolute genius at evoking eldritch horror, and a poet of the macabre, the sinister, and bizarre. His stories, for all their obvious flaws, are nowadays classed as literature. Lovecraft's great old ones, most of them largely unrelated to historical deities, demons, or devils, have scared and upset thousands of readers worldwide. Is that all? Probably millions at this point, especially with all the adaptations. They have been fed with huge surges of vibrant fear energy and have become vessels of concepts that far exceed the terrors of your usual everyday zombie, werewolf, or ghost. In fact, they have come to be very much alive. One of the first occultists who recognized this was Kenneth Grant. It was an original and pioneering insight. A freshly created god, brimming full with passionate energy and sentience, can be a lot stronger than a long-forgotten ancient deity. In fact, when you try to revive an old and dormant deity, you can spend a long, long time feeding and adjusting it before much happens. If you make up a new deity and feed it with lots of attention and emotion, you are creating a shape, a portal, and an effigy that connects to much stronger experiences. Okay, I'm gonna intervene here. Or I'm gonna interrupt. There's something to be said about generating egregores and thought forms yourself, or egregores yourself. Certainly. But let's not dismiss an entire cultural wave. Let's not discount the power of multiple people coming together for something. I just didn't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater there. Okay. The distinction between genuine and fictional deities is irrelevant here. After all, every single deity was invented at some time. Yep, now we're getting into Ganondorf and Gandalf. Gandalf and Ganondorf now, and how you could absolutely use them as well in magic. Okay. The distinction between genuine and fictional deities is irrelevant here. After all, every single deity was invented at some time. Its shape and form were created and developed according to subjective insight and social conventions. And when the shape is stabilized, it began to touch energy and sentience from the all-self, and to conduct them into the realm of human awareness. The same goes for your personality. Yep, yours too. Mine and yours. This process isn't confined to the past. It happens again and again. Whenever a god moves to another culture, to another group of worshippers, receives a new name, new attributes, or gets connected to a new myth cluster, ancient gods change their images all the time to accommodate their worshippers. Yep. Masks and ancestors. They can be one and many, just as you or I prefer. And as long as they get attention and emotion, they are happy with it. The same goes for modern gods. One reason the great goddess of Wicca had such a swift career is the fact that she fits our age so well. Her ideological background is a long way from the many pagan goddesses of the past. As Ronald Hutton has demonstrated in The Triumph of the Moon, but that doesn't mean that she isn't very much alive. Indeed, her success derives to a great deal from being so modern. She fits contemporary worshippers and the way they think. In a similar way, Lovecraft's ancient ones fit modern physics and psychology. They are closer to archetypes than to personified deities. They abound in transdimensional, nuclear, non-linear, non-Euclidean, and abstract manifestations. And they are very far from contemporary human behavior. Behavior, thought, or ethics. In this sense, they are not only very modern, but also very, very old. Their experience catapults the mind to the ages when normal human thinking wasn't developed yet, when people were moved by stronger instincts and less conventions, laws, or ethical norms. The ancient ones existed before the world was shaped by reason, just as our modern sciences transcended what looked so reasonable and mechanical only a few centuries ago. This myth pattern is by no means new. The Greek gods fight the elder race of the chaotic Titans before they can establish a well-ordered universe. The Nordic gods struggle against the earlier race of giants, the Jotun, right? Characterized by excessive powers, catastrophic behavior, and deep eldritch wisdom. The same pattern appears in Lovecraft's mythology. In short, his Cthulhu mythos tapped into something very old and very genuine and allowed an influx of ancient magic from the night side to consensual reality. Consensual reality. You can meet the ancient ones, happy and very much alive, when you transcend the limits of your identity and go traveling on the rear side of the tree. Some of them appear like Lovecraft saw them, others are quite different. And when you compare notes with other nightside travelers, you will be amazed just how fantastically subjective and original all visions are. This is hardly surprising. On the back of the tree, rules do not apply. Map makers go mad, and analytical thoughts are simply excess baggage. Well said. Map makers go mad, and analytical thoughts are simply excess baggage. Before long, the dedicated traveler realizes her or his intimate identity with the ancient ones, and what began as dread and revulsion turns into remembrance and delight. It is a fascinating aspect of Lovecraftian lore that the terrible consciousness he attributed to the dreaded ancient ones closely parallels the awareness pulsating between dualism and monism, cultivated by the Tantrika of Kashmir. Then there's a quote here. But the entities outside the gates command all angels, and view the myriad parts of the cosmos in terms of fragmentary change involving perspective, or the changeless totality beyond perspective, in accordance to their will. That's from Through the Gates of the Silver Key. Interesting. Okay, let's see if we have enough time to even finish this section. This is kind of a long section. A few more pages. Okay. Lakshmana Desikendra, Abhinavagupta, Utpaladeva, and Kshamaraja would have approved. They just wouldn't have comprehended what the unhappy American was so upset about. I think that's actually where we'll end the video. This one's getting kind of long. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please leave them below. Have a good rest of the day, good rest of the week. Thanks for stopping by, and hopefully I'll see you next time. Thanks.